Hey everybody, we're back with another episode on Wendy and Tech, and today we have an amazing guest today. I'm super excited he was able to bless us with his presence. We have Samuel, who works within HR and has worked with various tech industries. So you guys go ahead and give a warm welcome to Sam.
Thank you for having me, Wendy. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam. So before we get started, let's hear a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
My name is Samuel Ayoade. I am a Nigerian American born and raised in New Jersey and also New York, but been in Houston now since 2005. A little bit about me professionally. I initially started as a computer science engineer major. When I was an undergrad, decided to switch my major over to business. From that point, I have been working in the business space for a little bit. Was doing finance for a little bit, decided that I hated that. It wasn't for me. And then I eventually started teaching for a little bit. So I was a teacher for 2 years while deciding I want to pursue my degree in something that's meaningful. So I went and got my MBA at Houston Baptist University and decided to get a concentration in human resources management. So basically since then, since about 2020, I've been working as an HR professional in HRIS, talent acquisition, recruiting, a lot of different spaces, change management. I've worked in multiple different industries, oil and gas, tech, corporate America, you name it. So I've had a breadth of experience, recruiting and also doing talent acquisition, onboarding training, and leadership and development in that regard.
Do y'all just hear all that? I mean, my God. So, anyways, this is gonna be a great conversation today. I'm so happy. And kudos for all that. You're really young too, doing a lot of stuff within the HR industry. I mean, it's pretty hectic working in human resources, so I applaud you for that. But I want to get into some really good questions for you today, so that we can help out some viewers out there who may be wanting to hear the real spill on how to get that job. How do I get a job? And let's go ahead and get into it.
Okay.
So my first question for you, Sam, is could you share what you believe are the top qualities HR professionals are looking for when they're hiring in our tech industry?
Well, I will speak to my experience in tech. So I was a talent acquisition manager that worked for Solemn, and I worked for the software delivery service side of the business. So software engineers, data engineers, platform engineers, Azure, Scrum Masters, agile development consultants, whatever you named it. And one of the big things that they were always looking for that's not very known upon is social skills, intangible skills. A lot of people in tech off the time can get all their certifications and you can have 10 and 12, 13 certifications. And you can have all the technical skills to do the job. But in the tech space, you also have to have those intangibles. So a lot of times you have to be able to navigate leadership conversations. You have to obviously drive, the project from the start of the project to the end of the delivery of the project. But a lot of that has to also do with client stakeholder management. Are you able to articulate things that are very complex to somebody who doesn't understand the technological side of things in that regard? So oftentimes when I was recruiting in that space or looking for roles at the director, principal, senior architect level, a lot of times what we really focused on was, okay, you have the technical skill set, but can you drive delivery? Can you be able to navigate the tough conversations? What do you do when, your platform engineer takes a week off on vacation, but your project needs to be done in 2 weeks or the requirements keep changing? Are you able to be that type of person when working with the stakeholder, communicating expectations on what delivery needs to be done? And then how are you able to adjust to those problem solving issues? I think that's something that, a lot of people can get into the weeds and geek out about the tech stuff, which is amazing, which is great. We need a lot of Black professionals in that space, but the other half of that battle truly is how do you articulate that to the client and obviously be valuable to your company and showcasing that you can bridge the gap for them for that software solution or that software implementation that you're trying to do.
That's perfect. And I hope you guys go ahead when you watch this episode, rewind it and put the captions on so you can see word for word what he just told you to do. That will work for you. And then also our next thing too, so even when like people are applying for jobs, right, and we see a job role come out on LinkedIn or Indeed and we look at the job description, how important is it for someone to tailor their resume towards that job position for each job?
That's a great question. So I always have this thing that I tell people when I'm having networking conversations with them is you should have 3 resumes. One should be your CV. So the accumulation of all that you've done, whether it's from dating back to college, internship, or really the CV, I like to say is your last 5 to 7 years professionally of work and what that looks like. And then you should have your general resume, the one that you normally put out for feelers, for the job applications on LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever you see like that. And then you should have a third version, which you can always go in and edit on Word and make consistent changes to it. So whether it's a job application that you see, and then you use ChatGPT, please use that to be your friend. There's a lot of people who don't understand there's a benefit of that. And because AI is now starting to take over in these applicant tracking systems, it's important to have those buzzwords, catchwords, whatever, words or phrases people are using these days. I say all that to say that there are still human beings who look at these resumes.
Mhm.
Not every company is transitioning to AI. Not every company has a system that's, exiting out certain things. Now, yes, there are certain knockout questions for certain experience or certain tools or skill sets that they look for in the application. And that's where oftentimes your application gets denied. It's not at the point where you put it in and it scans your resume, but there's certain questions that are in the application itself that the AI uses. So if it
Mm.
says it's 3 to 5 years of experience and you only put 3 years experience, the application might knock you out automatically because you don't have like 4 to 5 years of experience. It might knock out your application and deny you. And then you get that automated message 24 hours later. And you're like, well, nobody even looked at my resume. Again, it's, a 50-50 chance of what that looks like. But I always say have 3 versions, have your CV where you have accumulation of all your experience, have a general resume that you have like on your LinkedIn profile that everybody can get a feel for your skill set. And then when there's particular jobs that you see that you're really looking to obviously apply to or is like a niche role for you, I would probably say that use ChatGPT as your friend. But
Mm.
additionally with that, make sure that you are being real, what's the word I want to use?
Authentic.
Authentic
Yeah.
and specific when you
Mhm.
ask ChatGPT to
Yeah.
tailor your resume to.
That's crazy. I did not even know that. When did in tech learn something new in tech? Because I did not.
Yeah.
Okay, so like there's jobs that I apply for, right? Obviously, and they used to be
Mm-hmm.
like 24 hours. I'm like, dang, they give me a chance. But
Yeah.
now it makes sense. That probably was common sense, but it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say I apply for a job,
Yeah.
and they're like, okay, you gotta moved up to the interview process.
Yeah.
With you being in HR, what are like some mistakes you see candidates make during the interview process, right?
One, not doing enough research.
Mm.
I think what's common is that recruiters, we're smart people. People who work in HR are smart people. We know our company that we work for. So a lot of times people come in there with these buzzwords that they just get off the main page or the company overview. And they just kind of use those 3 to 5 buzzwords in their interview process and don't really take time to do research. At the end of the day, we know what our company does. We know what we do for a living. We know what we do to make money. We know the core values and all those things like that. Now it's good to do research on those things, of
Mm.
course, to make sure those things resonate with you. But don't throw around 4 or 5 buzzwords and expect the recruiter to automatically just be like, "Oh yeah, they're a great candidate. Let's move them forward." That's one mistake that I see oftentimes. Another times is not researching your recruiter. I think one thing that at the end of the day we are people, and we like to be relatable and resonate and things with us that one thing for me is that when somebody is taking maybe 5-10 minutes to take their time to go through my LinkedIn profile. And then they ask me some questions about what I do, on projects or personally. In that regard, it makes me remember them just a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if they might just be a little bit underqualified, I might advocate for them a little bit more because they took time to do a little bit of research about me as a recruiter and do a little bit more research and speak to something specifically within the company that they want to do and bring to the table in that regard. And then another thing is that, you know, not asking questions. I think that is a big yellow to red flag
Mm-hmm.
when you go to the interview process. And at the end of the day, the recruiter's trying to, identify if you have the skill set, culture fit, all those other things that, align to what the leadership team is looking for, not for what they're looking for. I think a common misconception is like, oh, well, this recruiter didn't like me and X, Y, and Z. No, that's not the case. We're the ones who work with the stakeholders. We're the ones who works with the leadership team. We're the ones who have those intake meetings, and we understand what they are looking for the person in this role. And we have to identify that in those candidates and then be an advocate for them. So when you come into the interview process and you don't ask no questions,
Mm-hmm.
or you're just like, all right, what's next steps? Or when can I hear back? And you didn't take no time to ask no questions about the company, no questions about the team you'll be working with, just ask about career trajectory, whatever it looks like, to just let people know that you're actually interested in being there long term. Even then, I know there's some jobs where we just apply, and we forget all about the fact that we applied to the job. But it doesn't hurt to take 10, 15 minutes before your interview or the day before and just write down 3 to 4 questions that will resonate with them and what the company's trying to do.
So you guys hear that, right? I'm just saying, you heard from an HR professional. I'll be saying that sometimes too, but
Yeah.
you heard it from Sam, and Sam works in HR, so you have to take his word for it. That's what I'm gonna say about that.
Everybody different though.
I know,
I
but
just
I
this is
mean,
my experience.
but you're giving the authentic truth. You've been working in it, in this field, so it's really helpful for us, especially being black in this industry. The little key points that we can do to stand out for ourselves. And right now the tech market is very competitive. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, obviously, it's kind of hard working in tech. In this year, I've seen so far, it was easier during COVID times, but now the market's a little bit more competitive. So, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to stand out in this competitive market? Like, how can they stand out to you?
I would say one of the big things is obviously the cliche, your network is your net worth, all that good stuff like that. But truly, that is one thing that's beneficial in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, there's a lot of referrals that I get from people who reached out to somebody who, was in the company. And one thing I always tell people is go on LinkedIn and research the person who has the job that you want
Mm-hmm.
and make a connection. Make it very, formal, informal. Just, hey, I want to touch base. I want to pick your brain. And most people, obviously not everybody checks their LinkedIn, but if you come in there with a nice introduction and don't go in there looking for, the easy way in, but if you go into there with the mindset of, hey, I want to pick your brain on what you do professionally. What do you do for a living? How do you operate in this company? How are you able to be successful in your role? So whether that is a application support architect, or that's a product manager, or that's a scrum master, or whatever it is, and maybe you're trying to differentiate yourself and get ahead of the curve by networking and talking to people who are in those positions with the company and see how long they've been there. Have they been there a year? Have they been there 2 years? Have they been there 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Why are they there so long? Some
Mm-hmm.
people are just like, I'm just here for the money. Cool. Other people's like, well, these are the benefits and the culture. And by you being able to speak to them, that's how you kind of get that breakthrough, because when those opportunities do open up in the future, they can think about you. They can say, oh, there's a person that I've been talking to. We have coffee chats, monthly check ins. I think they'd be a great fit for this role, whether it's an entry level, associate level, mid level management, or senior level. You kind of got to keep those connections warm. Another thing is, I'm sure as all tech people know, stay up with the trends,
Mm-hmm.
understand how AI is moving in this space. As you can see, a lot of companies are cutting back on workforce. It's for more money to put into AI. So those
Mm-hmm.
are some big things that are important in that regard. And then also just, be marketable. I think that's another big thing is that, and I know some people are introverted and not everybody can be extroverted on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn and go to networking events, but, have something that companies need. And whether that's a skill set, whether that's a personality trait, and just be able to do the research in that space.
And that's just flat out the truth. You really keep going through your responses. Keep going through all my questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
My bad.
it's okay because I'm like, oh, you kind of already really touched base on this. I really do, but your response is very authentic, and people need to hear this. I feel like a lot of people now are just trying to jump into tech, and it's obviously it's for money, and that's okay if it's for you, if it's for money, if it's not just a passion for you. But I think a lot of people are just trying to jump in the bandwagon. They don't understand the process to even get in,
Yeah.
and you really are here to tell them like that process is not as simple as you think it is going to be. And for us being, African Americans or, of descendants of, Black individuals, like, in your like, have you ever seen like, someone apply that is Black that you feel like was fully qualified for the role, and then they end up not getting it? Like, what was the reason for them not getting it?
Yeah, I've seen it a lot of times. I think it's one of those things where, um, you know, it's the world we live in. Obviously, we have to work twice as hard just to get where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of barriers to entry too. I think one thing that you need to that people need to understand is that there's very few Black professionals in the HR space,
Mm.
and what people need to understand is that HR is that first gate to get into companies. And as cliche as it sounds, people want to hire people that look like them. People want to hire people that have similar backgrounds as them, that understand where they come from, understand how they think, in the same country club, golf club, whatever it is. Kids go to the same school. People want to feel comfortable in that space. And obviously, even though the kind of current climate that we live in today's world, those conversations are now being put in our faces and thrown in our faces, and almost turning back the clock a little bit, just in how hard it is for Black individuals to keep jobs in corporate America, or to just get that barrier of entry in corporate America. Obviously, all the DEI stuff is affecting all of us in
Mm-hmm.
multiple ways, from the federal jobs to universities and the education space. And companies, as you can see, Target and a lot of other companies are rolling back their DEI if it's no longer something that they can afford to do.
Yeah.
And that's obviously affecting, people of color, not just Black people, Hispanic American, Asian American. But, at the end of the day, most of those efforts were for people like us that look like us to get in these spaces. And it almost now feels like it's kind of getting back into that country club mentality.
Yeah.
You got to know somebody to get in and kind of be a yes man, no man type of person. And a lot of times what happens is, there's a lot of preconceived notions for Black candidates. Oftentimes, it's more frowned upon when we have gaps in our resumes.
Mm-hmm.
It's more frowned upon when we job hop from, 1099 contract to full time, or we get laid off and things that are outside of our control versus, with other races, it might be a little bit more lenient, or there might be certain words that leadership or management may use that don't equate necessarily to a Black candidate versus a white candidate, or versus an Asian candidate, or an Indian American candidate. So I think a lot of times what the issue is with that is that, again, one is the barrier of entry. Two is getting more professionals who are African American to obviously be in these spaces to advocate for African American candidates. At the end of the day, obviously, not every Black person that works in HR is going to hire every Black person.
Right.
Job
And
is to hire the most qualified people.
exactly.
It just gives us a better opportunity and window.
I do, and I really do. Like, your responses are really amazing. I really do appreciate you for like letting people know this, especially from your experience and being hands on with this. My biggest thing though that I notice a lot is like, um, since like COVID to like now, I've noticed a lot of more women also in leadership roles. But I feel like that's about to, maybe it may modify now because of the removal of certain programs that we had initiated for our industry. So I guess we'll have to see how that goes. But I do want to ask you a certain question though, that pertains to like recruiting and HR before you have to leave Wendy and Tech today. So my question to you basically is, okay, I noticed that there's a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Okay, yes. So I know there's a lot of people out there who always want to break into the industry without a degree. And they just feel like they don't need a degree at all. With you working HR, please tell the viewers how important it is for them to have their education, especially being a Black individual applying for these jobs, to compete with different people out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where it's a double-edged sword. I think that, especially in the tech space, during COVID, there was a lot of people who made career shifts and pivots to tech. I have friends who were in healthcare, worked in tech, were engineers, mechanical, electrical, decided to get into tech. People who never finished school, but, got Scrum Master certifications, Microsoft Azure certifications, JavaScript, all those things, was able to, build a space for themselves, which is important. I think that as what we're seeing is that a lot of companies are kind of in this split space of they don't care about these degrees as much anymore. A lot of them are just more leaning towards experience. If you've done this for 10 years, but you've never, gone to school, it's one of those things where that's fine. But I think sometimes there's certain professions where you do need to have that education piece to speak to the things that you're able to speak to, whether it's from a corporate level, from a technical level, and all those other aspects of it. At the end of the day, it's kind of a hard answer just because I've seen both sides of it where some companies, like, I don't care if they have a degree or not. Can they do the job?
Right.
Are they experienced? Bring them in through the door. And those candidates do get hired. And then there's other companies where they're a real stickler about, you got to have a bachelor's, got to have a master's, got to have X, Y, Z. And a lot of times it's from a leadership perspective to speak to the terminology of things. But I'm a firm believer of school, shows companies one things, that you're able to do something for 4 years, be committed to something, being able to say yes to things and no to things. And that's kind of what that translates to with a lot of these bachelor degrees now. But honestly, in the way this market is, the bachelor's degrees, unless it's a more personalized degree with a certain profession, most bachelor's degrees that look like it's high school diplomas these days. And a lot of people are now getting masters. Even myself with a master's degree, I still got to get certifications in HR because now companies are saying my master's degree doesn't equate to a certification that's a tenth of the price that I paid just to get into grad school. So
you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that It's unfortunate as
Mm-hmm.
the way this market changes. I mean, it's very clear that this is no longer a candidate market.
Mm-hmm.
It's an employer's market, and they are dictating the changes and they're dictating what they want in their companies. But I think at the end of the day, you have to just do your research and do what's right for you. And just make sure it makes sense financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Talk to God about it if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things where you have to make sure that you're doing the right thing for yourself and you're not wasting money on certifications that aren't going anywhere
Mm-hmm.
in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So make sure that you do that. As I would say to anybody who's kind of conflicted on whether I should get a degree, whether I should, get a certification, sit on it, pray on it, decide whether it's best for you, do your research, talk to people in your field who are doing the work that you want, that you aspire to do, and, see if that's something they want to do. And I'll just kind of leave it at this. I, at some point, wanted to be a lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
wanted to go back to school and get my law degree. And not every lawyer that I've talked to, but most of them, like, I don't enjoy what I do. But, I went to law school because it opened a multitude of different avenues for me financially and a wealth perspective. And that's something that I had to juggle with on deciding, do I want to do 3 years of school and no longer make money because
Mm-hmm.
to be a full-time student, or do I want to be a part-time student, do that for 4 years, work a full-time job, and kill myself for the potential opportunity to gain different avenues of wealth. But in the society and world that we live in today, there's a multitude of different things. You just got to put the time and energy to it. So anybody who's kind of struggling or trying to feel like they don't know what they want to do, I would just encourage you to make sure that you take as much time as possible on that decision, especially if it's a financial one or if it's a mental one that's causing you a lot of stress. Give it to God and then just decide on what you want to do next with it.
Yes.
So,
Okay, Sam, I really appreciate you for coming today. We might have to get you to come back for part 2 or something. We might need him to come back, y'all, but thank you so much for this, Sam, for blessing us with your presence. HR Talks was amazing, and I really appreciate you for coming on with D and Tech.
yeah, appreciate you having me. If you have me again, other questions,
Okay.
whatever it is, resume reviews. But yeah, I'm happy to help, happy to have these conversations and speak from the perspective of, African American person, Black person, first generation Nigerian, parents, all that stuff like that. So I know what it's like, been there, and I've had 3 different careers. So I'm trying to stick to HR right now. But
Yeah.
the way this market looking, I might have
You
to do
want to
something.
come in,
I might have to do tech. I might
Wendy
have
and
to do
Tech.
something else.
Yes, Wendy and Tech. Okay, but thank you, Sam, and I really appreciate you.
Of course, thanks for having
Thank
me.
y'all.